The captivating legacy of Elizabeth and Philip is a truly epic tale of a profound and enduring love, tested and forged by the relentless trials of fate and the passage of time. From her earliest childhood, the young Princess Elizabeth harbored dreams of a life free from royal protocols and duties, envisioning herself surrounded by graceful horses and the boundless expanse of nature. However, unpredictable twists of fate, like a whirlwind, instantly altered her cherished desires, irrevocably drawing her into the majestic corridors of power and inevitable grandeur. It was amidst this rapid and at times chaotic maelstrom of events that her path intersected with a challenging, yet charming contender for her heart, the young naval cadet, Prince Philip, whose own life had already been marked by a series of tragedies and constant upheaval. Their initial glances, exchanged at a formal royal reception, marked not merely an introduction but the starting point of an incredible, eventful journey that spanned 73 years. Despite all the obstacles they faced, from Philip's family's sometimes precarious financial situation to significant resistance from the conservative royal court, Elizabeth and Philip's profound love honorably withstood the test of time in the most challenging circumstances. Their life together, marked by marriage, inevitable conflicts, the intricacies of political intrigue and personal adversities, managed to preserve the genuine and deep affection that bound these two remarkable individuals forever. Thus began their indomitable life together, filled with both profound tragedies and brilliant triumphs, where every decision they made could influence the destinies of millions. This multifaceted story encompassed everything: passionate, eagerly awaited letters from the front, touching, private moments of family happiness, and of course, the heavy, sometimes overwhelming obligations to their nation. Their marriage, perhaps not ideal in the conventional sense, embodied the full grandeur of the human spirit and an unbreakable will to live, which, without a doubt, tragically could not have existed without their mutual, deep love for each other. Picture this: side by side, unwavering, she and he, Elizabeth and Philip, the great queen and her unfailingly loyal consort, a symbol of steadfastness and devotion. In her carefree childhood, young Elizabeth could never have imagined that she would one day ascend the throne. According to established tradition, the crown was destined for her uncle. She was quite far down the line of succession and certainly did not anticipate such abrupt and radical changes to her orderly life. But when Edward VIII unexpectedly decided to abdicate for the sake of his beloved, an American woman with a rather questionable reputation, her father was compelled to take the throne, and Elizabeth was then only 10 years old. Thus, at such a tender age, Princess Lilibet, as her loved ones affectionately called her, unexpectedly became the heir to the British throne. Queen Elizabeth, it must be acknowledged, displayed an unusually strong and independent character from childhood. Despite all the plans and aspirations of her monarch parents, the future ruler of Great Britain was absolutely certain of one thing: her destined spouse would undoubtedly be a landowner, ideally a dedicated horse-breeding farmer, as from a very young age she adored horses and was passionate about equestrian sports. A choice of life partner, from her own perspective, would have been highly suitable and harmonious. However, Princess Lilibet ultimately abandoned this cherished dream when she fell head over heels in love with a naval cadet, a choice that, incidentally, many members of the royal family believed was far from ideal for a future queen. This young sailor was named Philip. Despite his undeniably noble lineage, he found himself in a state of poverty, which seemingly made him entirely uninteresting to the British royal family as a potential suitor. However, the future Queen Elizabeth held a completely different view. Their fateful meeting occurred at a family reception when Elizabeth was just 13 years old and Philip was 18. The tall, well-built blonde instantly made an indelible and profound impression on young Lilibet, captivating her heart at first sight. Philip, who held the titles of Prince of Greece and Denmark, was born in 1921 on the picturesque island of Corfu into a royal family that had, by then, already lost its real power. Their family history was fraught with tragedies. His grandfather, King George I of Greece, was assassinated in 1913. His uncle was subsequently overthrown from the throne, and his father, plunged into deep depression after losing all his regalia and privileges, was forced to flee Greece, taking his wife and children to seek refuge in other lands. In time, Philip's parents' marriage dissolved. His father found refuge in luxurious Monte Carlo, where, according to accounts, he quite happily and carelessly squandered the remaining family funds. Meanwhile, his mother moved to Paris, but the weight of the life's hardships and adversities she had endured unfortunately soon led her to lose her sanity. Following these tragic events and family discord, Philip was taken in by his father, who, it seemed, sought to rid himself of extra burdens by placing his son in a boarding school so he wouldn't interfere with his new life. Soon his father practically forgot about the boy's existence. Several years later, Philip, finding himself completely destitute, managed to reach England, where, fortunately, he found shelter and support among his numerous relatives. Understandably, a suitor like Philip was entirely unwelcome to Princess Elizabeth's parents. And although Philip's closest relatives, aware of his predicament, repeatedly approached King George about a potential marriage, the royal couple merely brushed off these ideas, unwilling to even consider such a prospect. However, the future Queen Elizabeth, demonstrating remarkable persistence, had no intention of abandoning her resolve. Meanwhile, her future husband successfully completed his training in 1940, earning the honorable rank of midshipman. To join the ranks of the Royal Navy of Great Britain, Philip was compelled to make significant sacrifices. He renounced all his titles and adopted British citizenship, becoming a subject under the surname Mountbatten. Now, as a British serviceman, Philip went to the front, where he was to endure the harsh trials of war. From there, he regularly wrote tender and passionate letters to his beloved Lilibet, expressing his deep feelings. Yet, despite all this, Elizabeth's parents remained unyielding in their disapproval of the union. Philip personally approached King George VI with a formal request for consent to marry Princess Elizabeth, but received a categorical and unequivocal refusal. The reasons for this were substantial. Firstly, by that point, Philip's family had become utterly impoverished, making him a highly undesirable candidate for the royal family. Secondly, and this was a far more serious and troubling issue, during the war, a significant portion of Philip's family had sided with the Nazis, casting a shadow on his reputation. His sisters, Margarita, Theodora, and Sophie, had even married high-ranking Nazi officers, which was an utterly unacceptable fact for the British monarchy. Princess Elizabeth, driven by a patriotic impulse and a desire to be closer to her people during difficult times, expressed a genuine wish to go to the front lines. However, her father, King George VI, categorically opposed this idea, strictly forbidding the heir to the throne from risking her life, as he considered her safety a paramount task for the stability of the monarchy. Immediately upon his return home after the cessation of hostilities, Prince Philip, overcome with tender feelings, promptly went to his beloved. During the tumultuous war years, as the world was engulfed in flames, the competition for the hand of the future queen had significantly dwindled. Many of the former contenders had either found happiness in marriage with others or continued their search in a different direction. Thus, by the time of his return, virtually no one else remained who could lay claim to the princess's heart. Further delay in proposing marriage simply became impossible. It is rumored that Princess Elizabeth, no longer able to suppress her feelings and anticipation, took the initiative herself and proposed marriage to Philip. This is a notable parallel to her great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, who also proposed to Prince Albert in her time. This story, in the opinion of many, serves as a vivid example of how strong characters and certain traits are inherited, confirming that genes often make their presence known in the most unexpected situations. While Princess Elizabeth's parents were not entirely satisfied with their daughter's choice or certain circumstances, they ultimately gave their consent to the union, as Elizabeth's stubbornness and determination in the matter proved truly unyielding, rendering any objections powerless. Thus, in 1947, after receiving her parents' blessing, the decision was made to hold the wedding ceremony, scheduled for November. This grand and solemn event, as befits royalty, took place within the hallowed walls of Westminster Abbey, adhering to long-standing British traditions. At the ceremony, the bride, the future queen, was represented by the entire British court in all its splendor and grandeur, symbolizing the nation's support. Meanwhile, the groom, Prince Philip, was only permitted to invite his mother, Princess Alice of Battenberg, who sadly had for many years lived on the precarious edge between reality and a state close to madness, adding a particular poignancy to the occasion. In accordance with established canons and protocol, the future queen was escorted to the altar by her father, King George VI, symbolizing the transfer of his daughter into the care of her future husband. Princess Elizabeth wore a magnificent ivory satin gown, shimmering and iridescent thanks to intricate embroidery featuring thousands of pearl and crystal beads, giving the ensemble a truly fairy tale appearance. The creation of this genuine masterpiece of sartorial art, which entered fashion history, required several months of painstaking work by the royal couturier, the renowned Sir Norman Hartnell. It is worth noting that opulent and elaborate wedding gowns, often complemented by incredibly long trains, have always been held in special esteem and affection within this royal family, as evidenced by many historical examples, such as the unforgettable dress of Princess Diana. Following the solemn wedding ceremony, the newlyweds, Prince Philip and Princess Elizabeth, fully immersed themselves in an active social life befitting their high status. They regularly attended prestigious horse races, participated in numerous official and unofficial events, and sometimes even appeared on dance floors, where one could encounter not only members of high society, but also ordinary citizens. It was during this period that the first rumors and speculations began to circulate regarding Prince Philip's free-spirited and independent nature, as he seemingly chafed under the constant control and restrictions imposed by royal protocol. For instance, the personal secretary who constantly followed Philip was, in fact, appointed not only for administrative duties, but also to safeguard the Queen's honor and protect the prince himself from overly intrusive press, a situation known to cause him considerable displeasure and irritation. Despite all the challenges, Elizabeth consistently demonstrated her resolve and strong character. She increasingly made important decisions independently, without consulting her husband, as if preparing to assume not only the country's throne, but also the leading position within her own family. The romantically inclined prince, in turn, spent more and more time away from his young wife, and rumor had it his heart was even captivated by singer Pat Kirkwood. Nevertheless, despite these speculations, Philip remained devoted to his queen, and the matter never escalated into a true romantic affair. Perhaps he simply needed to occasionally distance himself from the realization that his role would always be to stand in the shadow of his crowned wife. Talk of his alleged dalliances ceased after Elizabeth gave birth to their firstborn, Charles. Soon after, the couple moved to Malta, where Philip was stationed for his naval service. It was perhaps during this period that the strong-willed Crown Princess Elizabeth truly experienced life as a wife and mother. She cooked her own meals, invited the wives of Philip's fellow officers for visits, and reveled in ordinary life. However, the harmony and happiness of this family idyll were shattered in an instant when King George VI of Great Britain passed away. Philip was the first to learn of his death. At that moment, Elizabeth was on a trip to Kenya, and he fully understood the shock this tragic news would bring to his wife. Philip had always been her principal pillar of strength and support. It was he who was the first to kneel and pledge his allegiance to his queen, uttering the solemn words, "I, Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, do become your liege man of life and limb, and of earthly worship, and faith and truth I will bear unto you, to live and die against all manner of folks. So help me God." Following Elizabeth's ascension to the throne, a serious dispute erupted at court. After George VI's death, Philip's uncle, Dicky, known as Lord Mountbatten, proposed that the reigning house be named Mountbatten, not Windsor. This declaration was vehemently disliked by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, provoking her sharp disapproval. The Queen was somewhat perplexed and, on the advice of Prime Minister Winston Churchill, decided to retain the surname Windsor. However, seeing how much this upset Philip, she herself felt deeply troubled by the situation. In the spring of 1959, Elizabeth became pregnant again. She decided to revisit the surname issue, aiming to please her husband, whom she continued to love and cherish immensely. The outcome of these prolonged and rather difficult discussions was a decision that Prince Charles and Princess Anne would retain the surname Windsor, while all subsequent heirs would bear the double-barreled surname Mountbatten-Windsor. And so in 1960, the royal couple welcomed their second son, who was named Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Elizabeth named the boy Andrew, a name that honored Philip's father, Prince Andrew of Greece and Denmark. Following this momentous turn of events, Philip seemed to overcome his internal struggles and fully dedicated himself to charitable work. His primary areas of interest included supporting sports, youth initiatives, and educational development. And while in public life he always remained in the shadow of his crowned wife, within the family circle, Philip managed to assert his right to a decisive voice. He took responsibility for the children's upbringing and education, as well as for resolving numerous domestic matters. In these areas, Elizabeth fully trusted her husband, relying on his judgment and decisions. For instance, it was Philip who once strongly urged Charles to marry. Despite his son's clear resistance, Philip decisively cut short all arguments, emphatically stating that Charles must end his relationship with his mistress, Camilla, and find a suitable wife. How that story ultimately concluded is well known to us all. From the time Princess Diana entered the picture, the relationship between father and son underwent significant changes. On several occasions, Charles even publicly accused his father of numerous marital infidelities, while Philip maintained an Olympic calm and dignity. Years later, Philip and Diana's personal correspondence was unexpectedly published, making it abundantly clear that the prince treated Lady Spencer with sincere warmth and care, as if she were his own daughter. He knew perfectly well how difficult it was to adapt to life in the royal family, especially when one was not initially welcome there. Diana sent her father-in-law long, emotional letters, to which Philip responded with concise notes, always keeping copies. Diana called him Papa, just as she did her own father, which speaks to the depth of their bond. Certainly not everything in the lives of the Queen and her husband was smooth. Their children often brought more disappointments than joys. Perhaps for this reason, Elizabeth and Philip felt immense love for their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, finding solace and meaning in them. The final years in the royal household were spent in an atmosphere of peace and tranquility. The Queen spent much time at her estate, taking walks arm in arm with her beloved husband, enthusiastically training dogs and breeding horses. Elizabeth deeply disliked it when her and Philip's peaceful solitude was broken by the prince's death on April 9, 2021. He passed away just 2 months shy of his 100th birthday. Her Majesty the Queen endured this loss with immense difficulty, plunging into the deepest sorrow. The first year after the passing of her beloved husband, Prince Philip, proved particularly agonizing and challenging. However, with time, she demonstrated remarkable resilience, gradually adapting to a new reality devoid of his presence. As a token of enduring memory for the man who had been her main support and the meaning of her entire life, the Queen invariably carried his favorite walking stick, transforming it into a silent symbol of their unbreakable bond. And so, years later, the royal couple was reunited, finding eternal peace in the heavenly realms. Although they were not destined to celebrate their 75th wedding anniversary, their sincere and profound love continues to radiate light, like an unfading beacon. It serves as an inspiring example, symbolizing enduring human values, unwavering loyalty, unyielding strength of spirit, and the ability to overcome any life's adversities together. The passing of Prince Philip was a devastating blow to Her Majesty, shaking the very foundations of her world. Yet even after this irreplaceable loss, the Queen demonstrated that their profound connection had not been severed, but continued to be invisibly present in her every decision, every gesture, and every new morning when her hand rested upon her beloved husband's walking stick. Now, with their joint departure into eternity, they have both become an immortal page in the grand history of humanity, forever inscribed in the glorious annals not only of the British monarchy, but of all world heritage. Their unbreakable love serves as a poignant reminder to us all that even the most powerful and majestic individuals require simple, sincere human happiness and the reliable support of a loved one. And it can be stated with full certainty, their eternal union will serve as a source of inspiration for many generations to come, forever etched in the hearts of all who can truly appreciate genuine feelings and unyielding dignity displayed in the face of all life's trials. Indeed, Queen Elizabeth was an outstanding and great woman, whose name and deeds will forever endure through the ages, as will the cherished memory of her valiant husband, Prince Philip.